Hey guys, what is happening? Welcome to a new NVIDIA update video. So today, let's talk about NVIDIA stock. Let's talk about what it did today and what we can expect moving forward. So as per usual, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, I do have that membership section on YouTube. The link is down below in the description at the top of it. Of course, you can click that if you want to join, where I constantly share all my, posts, updates, etc. on Tesla mainly, but I also have a new tier for $4.99 that includes NVIDIA if you want to see NVIDIA. But if you only want to see Tesla, it's just $2.99. But with that being said and done, it's there for you if you would like it. But jumping into a NVIDIA rather, closing the day up a pretty substantial 6.5%, closing at $116 per share, which of course compared to the market is a beautiful outperformance, I would argue. So let's talk about NVIDIA and figure out what this means moving forward and what we can expect really. So NVIDIA looking obviously very bullish, right? I think NVIDIA is looking phenomenally bullish. That doesn't mean it can't reject and come back down to about 112 to 110. In fact, I actually wouldn't be surprised if it does. But with that being said, I think NVIDIA still looks pretty damn good. Why? Well, there's several reasons. Number one, we had this downward channel. What happened today? Well, we broke out of it, right? We obviously broke out of it. We actually, even in the morning, retested the downward channel ever so slightly, right? Came right back into it. You can see here, beautiful retest. And then we rocketed higher, close towards the high of the day. Volume a little bit on the lower end. I definitely would like to see more volume come in on such a push-up. So that's a little bit concerning in my opinion. That's kind of a red flag, I would say. But nonetheless, we did break out of the downward channel. NVIDIA looks pretty damn good. For potentially even a little bit more of an upside move, but it is entering a pretty massive area of resistance. Why? Well, you can see back here, right? There's pretty much 117 as high as about closer to 120, that $3 point range-ish. Massive area of before support. Bounced here, bounced here, bounced here, right? And then came back below it on this massive red candle on elevated volume, or rather, it wasn't elevated volume. I guess the next candle was elevated volume, but we did break down below it. And then what happened, right? We ended up turning into a resistance, right? So again, support, 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 broke down below. Now resistance, resistance, right? So again, we're coming back into this level now, and naturally it should in theory act as a resistance. Obviously, if we break back above it, it's now a support. But as it stands at the moment, rejection is expected until we close and confirm a closure back above it. So that's the way I kind of look at that, right? That's the way I'm kind of generally looking at NVIDIA right now. Very bullish, but it is entering some pretty massive area of resistance. So I'd be very careful around that 117 to 120-ish range. But with that being said, the structure on NVIDIA is looking pretty solid, right? It's looking pretty solid in the sense that the MACD has officially flipped bullish. Very good sign, of course. That's, NVIDIA respects the MACD usually, right? Whenever it flips bullish, NVIDIA usually, it usually respects that indicator flipping bullish or bearish really, but in this case bullish, right? That's great. RSI looks pretty damn solid, back above 50, not too bad. Stochastic pointing straight up, still showing bullish momentum. This is not a stock I would short. I still think it's possible to come back down to really get a nice true daily retest of this breakout of this channel, maybe even come back down to about 112 to 110, right? I think that's a very real possibility. But it's not something I would bet on. And I wouldn't short it thinking that's going to happen, because who knows when or if it'll actually happen. Because at the moment, even the BX trender, everything is looking pretty bullish on NVIDIA. And any pullbacks from here would just be opportunities if they are ever presented, right? But that's just the way I look at it, right? So you'd be, in my opinion, at least, you should be very careful shorting this stock. It's showing quite a lot of strength. This is not a stock I'd be shorting at all, that's for sure. But yeah, so with that being said though, right, even though we have this breakout, we are still entering some potential resistance, right? We have the market bias, we are near the top of it, but the market bias on this daily closure has not yet turned green. So it's not really a confirmed true bullish reversal, right? That's number one, right? We also have, of course, the band's regression. We did actually close above the median line of the band's regression, which is a nice sign to see. We can see many times before we got rejected, closed well above it. In fact, we actually arguably turned it into a support today. Very good sign. Again, the stock looks phenomenally bullish, right? I think the stock looks great. I really, really do. I think it looks phenomenal, but there are still some signs of concern. For instance, right? This downtrend, we had this high, we set this low, then we set a lower high rather, then we set a lower low, we set a lower high, we set a lower low, potentially setting a lower high here. What really would make NVIDIA bullish, in my opinion, at least for the medium term, let's just say, maybe even long term, but at the very least, medium term, is a break of structure. A break of structure would occur if NVIDIA ever breaks out of this range right here. So this candle right here was essentially that recent swing high, right? Before we had this massive downturn. So the way I look at it is a breakout structure would be if NVIDIA ever breaks above this level right here, which is pretty much 120, honestly, just above 120. That's a breakout structure. That means that NVIDIA has officially flipped the trend to being bullish. The market bias most likely will at that point turn green, indicating that as well. The MACD and everything and the stochastic and the BX trend will most likely just follow suit, honestly. And then we most likely get a true bullish trend reversal. And NVIDIA, in my opinion, at that point becomes pretty much like, you can't even argue it, it's bullish, right? Right now, there's still some arguments to be made because again, even though all these indicators are looking great, we haven't broken above this recent swing high. That's important. BX trend, market bias hasn't turned green. And we are entering what could be an area that does smack NVIDIA back down. So if there isn't a place to reject, kind of like what we did over here, but this time we gapped up, it would be pretty much between 117 to about 120. If there's a place to reject, it would be there. So that's what I'd be looking at. And that's probably what bears are looking at right now as well. But again, breaking above it, closing above it, holding above it would be very bullish. So that's the main thing I'm looking at in NVIDIA right now, honestly, right? I wouldn't be looking too much more in depth other than that. It's pretty simple. Now, another thing I like to look at for a trend, really, go ahead and remove this for a second. Boom, get this out of here. Show this. It's going to be this, the 5 EMA and the 13 EMA. Pretty important. Another way to determine trend, right? Whenever the green essentially crosses the red, you probably have a bullish trend, right? That you have some bullish momentum coming in. We haven't crossed yet, right? We haven't crossed yet. I would argue this is pretty similar to the BX trender. Honestly, if we even bring out the BX trender, it probably, not the BX trender, the market bias. It's probably very similar to the market bias. Whenever this flips, market bias probably flips as well and vice versa, right? So you can see, we aren't flipped just yet. The green has not crossed the red just yet. It doesn't need like pretty much one more push. Not much more is needed, but it hasn't crossed just yet. Tomorrow CPI. If we gap down, especially pretty aggressively on CPI, this will definitely not flip bullish just yet. And this could still be a bit of a potential bull trap. So just, keep that in mind, right? I do think, again, I still think NVIDIA looks phenomenal. I think it definitely looks more bullish than bearish. But to really get a true trend reversal, you want to see this flip. You want to see the market bias flip. And to really confirm it, you really want to see us make a higher high, a fresh swing high above this pretty much 120 range. And that will be even more bullish for NVIDIA. But again, like I said, regardless, potentially entering up, what could be a massive resistance, this is still not a stock I personally would even think about shorting. It's just too high risk in my opinion. Once this thing gets going, if it's like the new Tesla, there's no stopping it. It really is. It's just too powerful. Wouldn't short it. Absolutely not. Even if I do expect a rejection here, I still wouldn't even risk it. It's just too high risk in my opinion. But with that being said, that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at for NVIDIA right now. In terms of options flow, a lot of call selling on NVIDIA today, right? A decent amount of call selling actually on NVIDIA. You can see here, including a 1.2 million here, 1.6 million call sell over here. So a lot of call selling throughout the day on NVIDIA. But with that being said, a lot of call buying as well. You can see confirmed flow. NVIDIA is the highest in the market, sitting at almost 34 million confirmed bullish flow. So we'll see how that plays out, right? We'll see how NVIDIA decides to react over to the CPI coming out tomorrow morning, and really just how the market reacts. Because again, the market is also similar to NVIDIA. It's pretty close, but it's not flipped bullish just yet. It's pretty much retesting the market bias, just like NVIDIA is. If there's a place to reject for NVIDIA and the market, it's pretty much right around where we are pretty much right now in the market across the board. So let's see how CPI comes in. It's a pretty wild card. No reason to try and predict that. But again, overall, even if we get pullbacks, in my opinion, NVIDIA still looks pretty damn solid as long as it holds that 112 to about 110 range. If it falls below that, if NVIDIA falls back into the channel that we just broke out of pretty much today, that will be a little bit concerning. This will be a false breakout. This will be a massive bull trap, and that actually will be quite bearish. False breakouts are usually very bearish or bullish, really. It's the inverse, right? In this case, it would be bearish. If we had a false breakdown and then we come back in, bullish, obviously. So yeah, if we get a pullback, you definitely don't want to see it lose about 110, in my opinion, at least. But anyways, all that being said and done, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.